I do believe, obviously, sitting here today, it could all change, but sitting here today, I think AI isn't going to go anywhere. I think the tools are going to continue to get better, more powerful. And in order for talent teams to be able to utilize those tools, build their own tools that are going to be more effective and efficient, their data needs to be in a really, really good place. Because otherwise, if you're feeding an AI system poor data, it's just going to deliver poor outcomes. So if you're looking at something to optimize or something to fix, I would encourage that you look at how are you generating your data through the work that you're doing. Is it clean and is it reliable? That's probably the thing that I would prioritize.
Hi everyone, and welcome to this next episode of the Freedom of Work podcast. So I'm your host Leah, and I am joined today by Gareth. So Gareth, if you want to get things started, intro, who you are, where you've come from, and where you are today.
Yeah, sure. So my name is Gareth Pratten. I been working in talent acquisition for over 10 years now. Most of my experience has been working in really high growth, fast-paced, scale-up businesses, predominantly in the payment space. Sort of cut my teeth working at companies like Checkout.com, Stripe, and Nuvei, where I'm currently a senior manager of talent acquisition. And I look after all of recruitment in EMEA and APAC. So yeah, that's just a bit about myself.
Yeah, sounds like you've had a really great journey, and especially that global recruiting side of things. It really does open up your mindset to the talent that's around the world and what's kind of happening right now. So you've sat right in the core of it, I guess, from, as you said, those scale up, startup businesses, and especially in the finance industry. It's so fast paced and moving, and the technology is constantly growing. And I guess we're probably going to be talking about the keyword, which is AI, and that shift of AI and what kind of it that looks like right now. So is there anything that kind of maybe was like a moment where you thought, okay, the traditional recruiting, yeah, is still playing, it's still happening, but there's a kind of shift that may put you more towards AI or someone, or a certain moment that made you know that kind of this is where we need to go in the future of kind of finance and your recruiting?
Yeah. So I want to caveat by saying, like, with AI, obviously it's changing so much at the moment. Obviously, just kind of sharing my thoughts and my opinions based on sitting here today. But obviously, like, we could find like in 5-6 months' time, it's like everything has changed. But in terms of when I first started noticing like things, traditional recruiting, kind of open to change, I would say there was kind of two moments in my career. First was like very early on when I remember first getting involved in like sourcing candidates, trying to find the best talent. And I just felt that the way that recruiters go about sourcing talent, it's very kind of data driven. The best sources that I've worked with are very consistent, very diligent in the way they do things. It takes a lot of time, a lot of effort. And that was an area of recruitment that I noticed fairly early on where I thought there's got to be a better way to do sourcing because this just takes so much time. And, as human beings, we become tired, during that. So it becomes difficult to apply the same kind of level or standard when you're doing it for hours, looking at profiles.
Absolutely. It needs like a strong stamina to be able to keep continuing day in and day out with such like aggressive recruiting and keeping that kind of momentum continuously going if you're in a high growth environment, especially.
Exactly. Yeah. So even way back then, I thought, when the technology becomes available, like this will be an area that I think will get disrupted. Um, More recently, though, I would say, with the rise of AI and the fact that we're seeing, also speaking to people within the talent acquisition space, um, we're seeing a lot like application processes have never been easier now. AI tools can help build CVs, apply for people. So you're seeing a huge amount of applications coming through. And what businesses are doing to try and combat that is, oh, we'll use AI to sift through these applications. So you've kind of got a system, you've got a situation that's happening now where you've got AI systems kind of fighting AI systems.
AI, yeah.
Which is quite interesting in itself. But I think it raises questions, about whether there is something in that early stage of the process, like applications, CVs, whether that's traditional aspects of recruiting can also be looked at and potentially changed to, I guess, alleviate that conflict. So yeah, I would say those are two things that really stood out. One early on and one more recently.
Yeah, no, definitely. I absolutely get that. It's like both parties are trying to utilize AI for their benefit, but then it can become like their recruiters are kind of getting a bit frustrated because it's not the candidate itself and that they're using maybe too much AI. And it's obvious when some people are using AI in their CVs, but also they're using it to help themselves showcase their skills and talent in a way that is beneficial for the recruiter, but also the recruiter needs help sifting through this mass amount of talent because the AI is helping them to get more applications. And it's, yeah, I think it's hard because people are then finding it more difficult because the amount of CVs that are getting pushed through is much larger scale now. So you've kind of got to find like unique ways of showing who you are and what you do. And I think that's all part of it. And it's, yeah, it's definitely growing and showing that.
Yeah, so those are the sort of challenges that I think a lot of talent teams are experiencing now, especially. Yeah.
Yeah. And I guess as we are looking at this as a focus point, and you're saying there's different ways of working, and have you seen where teams are getting kind of real tangible value from AI right now? Is this kind of a core thing in terms of sifting through CVs? Is there anything else that you've really or that's worked and helped those teams to yeah succeed really?
I think looking at the AI technology now, I think a lot of the value that talent teams are getting is very much at like the top of the funnel. We talked about how, yeah, we've got AI systems helping us go through applications, and identifying, which applications are probably better suited to what it is you're looking for. Um, Not description creations, scheduling even. So a lot of it is kind of like top of funnel, where a lot of talent teams are getting a lot of benefit from AI. I would say that, having looked at AI over the last sort of 18 months, because it is a core part of my role today at Nuvei, is, implementing these AI solutions into our recruitment process. I would say one of the things, though, that I think is still a little bit hyped up and a little bit like maybe unrealistic is, in my honest opinion, I see a lot of like headlines and news out there around like AI will replace recruiters, and it will be like an autopilot, like recruitment will be, be automated from start to finish. And I think that is still at this stage is it's a lot of hype more than a reality. Because we're still seeing, even if we just look at these big AI companies, we're still seeing these AI companies themselves actually build out their talent teams. Like they're hiring loads of recruiters, loads of talent professionals. Um, so yeah, so I don't think, I think that is more than reality, I think.
Yeah, I think so. And I think it brings it back to how like human led and emotional a job application is, because your career at the end of the day is like it's the core of your life in a way, isn't it? It's like what you do most of your hours for a day, Monday to Friday, well, or Saturday to whatever kind of that shift looks like. And it's what you're spending the majority of your time on. It's what earns you money to be able to do nice things. It's a very emotional process. And I
Yeah.
think the AI tools at the top of the funnel is exactly what are beneficial for at the moment. These application tracking systems, scanning for certain sort of keywords and CVs, maybe kind of the automated messages, but all that needs to sit behind the human eye because, yeah, if at the end you're kind of greeted by this robot that says, congratulations, you've got the job, you're like, or you've been rejected and you're like, no, I was perfect for this job, I promise. It's kind of takes away from how difficult at getting a job can be sometimes, and it's very stressful. You've got to prep a lot. You've got to make sure that you know the ins and outs of the job role before each interview process. You really want to, if you really want a job, you're going in there, really trying your hardest. And I completely get that. I think it's so emotional, and we are all humans at the end of the day, trying to get something that is at the core of our life. So we need to kind of be reminded of that and make sure that, people aren't being scared that their jobs are going to be taken away, because everyone kind of needs that to be able to go through. And I get that AI is helping, but I do think the AI kind of doesn't understand the emotion part. So they don't understand, like, when somebody is sad or somebody is frustrated because something's happened. They kind of haven't got that bit yet. But again, in 6 months' time, we'll see.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with that. I think, a hot topic, especially when it comes to like AI and implementing it, is, how is this going to impact the candidate experience? That's I think a big kind of hot topic at the moment, as I said.
And yeah, I guess as you are building and implementing more tools, whether that's AI tools or anything, not to name kind of specific ones, but if you are looking into researching, how are you kind of, for a recruiter listening to this, how do you go about kind of pitching, oh, this tool's really going to work, and pitching that to like the C-suite or CFO who might maybe like looks at it as like a new line item cost? How do you kind of justify that in any ways? Because I know that's kind of a question that a lot of recruiters are wanting to, they want to be implementing AI, so they're on the AI train, but sometimes it's hard to justify a product that they're not sure is the right one. Is there any ways you kind of go about that, or any kind of tips or tricks you've got there?
What I've noticed kind of work well is we've all heard the narrative like, we roll out an AI tool, it's going to help save time, it's going to help save money. We've heard that, drive efficiencies, we've heard that narrative. I think where you kind of need to take that next step is being able to explain, we're saving time in this area. How is that time going to be redistributed to other areas so that you can drive more business outcomes, generate revenue? So for a perfect example is, you might say, we want to roll out this AI tool that's going to help us cut 30% of our recruiters' time when it comes to sourcing. I think you don't stop there. You kind of carry on and you go, with that 30% time saving and X amount of time, we're actually going to have our recruiters redistribute that time towards looking at our interview processes, and they're going to be focusing on how we can optimize our processes so that we can hire high quality candidates a lot quicker and have them start a lot faster. And then that's going to lead to, you know, further revenue generated down the line. And that investment cost that you're putting aside for that empty seat over there isn't going to be sitting empty for very long. So I think you kind of don't stop at those obvious savings, whether it's cost or time, but you kind of explain, with that savings, we're going to do this, and that's going to generate X, Y, and Z.
I think that's a really good way of explaining it, because people say that it's going to save them time, but then it makes them look like they're just kind of not going to do anything else in that time. So you're just going to sit there for the extra 30%. Like, yeah, I think that's a really good way of explaining it. Like, it's going to save time, but also it's going to then enhance another area. And that's a really good way of explaining it. I feel like that's like a good little like interview technique as well. Like, I feel like you've got your recruiter mindset there, do this, but then this, and this.
Yeah, exactly. And when you obviously, you're speaking to a CFO, you're speaking to a CEO, at the end of the day, they do want to know about what the impact is going to have, what it's going to mean for the business, and be able to understand the long-term effects of it. So yeah, that's what I would say is kind of like a key kind of tip or trick that I would encourage.
Yeah, brilliant. Love that. I think that kind of really rounds up kind of where you've been looking at, where it needed to change, what that looked like in terms of what's really tangible, and kind of how to go forward if you want to use an AI tool. So if I know you're also scaling across regions, and I think that's really something that at Remote First we are really interested in, and we put our heart and soul into global recruiting and hiring and trying to show how incredible it is to do so. So if you are kind of hiring in EMEA, APAC, do you think there's kind of anything that stands out, like maybe like kind of as broken first when you try to scale into a team across a different country compared to running a single market? I know they are two different things, and once you've got it sussed, it's sussed. But is there anything that, as you have been part of that first initial process, that has been maybe even hard that you didn't know was going to be hard, or something that, you realised yeah, okay, we need to take more of a look at this when you, did that global hiring?
When I was thinking about this question, and I was thinking about it through the lens of like, growing out a talent team, a recruitment team across, different regions. I think one of the things that when you move from a single market to, across multiple regions, I think the first thing that needs to sort of be looked at is your competency frameworks and performance metrics that you are assigning to your recruiters. And that sort of needs to be looked at and adjusted, because the amount of hires that you can expect from a recruiter in London, for example, would be very different to the amount of hires you may expect from someone in India, for example, or in Singapore. And I think that plays a big part when you are thinking about performance and you're thinking about who you're going to be promoting within your talent teams, and then being able to explain that to the business, because it's very difficult or it's very challenging to be able to explain to the business that you want to promote a recruiter in London who's maybe hired 10 people, but you don't want to promote someone in India because they've hired 12 people, but they're very different markets, right? So it's figuring out how that competency framework needs to adjust, how your performance metrics need to adjust to accommodate all these different regions, because there are those nuances. And then when it comes to like recruitment, just in general, when you sort of move out of a single market and you start to go into these other regions, a lot of things that may have been working traditionally when you're operating a single market may not work once you go into other locations.
Yeah. And do you find like that breaks as you go along and you're trialing, this is what we've done, and you replicate it and then realize, oh, this is not working here right now?
Yeah, absolutely. So a perfect example is like, if you've been operating in a single market and you've traditionally relied on inbound applications and referrals,
Yeah.
and now you decide to go to another market and you want to adopt that same strategy. If your employer brand isn't as strong in that market, then you're gonna have a tough time. So it's understanding the market you're going into, and being able to understand that you may have to adjust your recruitment strategy, and be able to, I guess, pivot and focus on other areas in order to get the same results.
Yeah, I feel like being experimental is a word I've used on this podcast with so many podcast guests. It it is very like experimental role, and you can trial it with like, say, somebody from each team, for example, and trial it with them first before kind of rolling it out and saying, does this work? Oh no, actually this only works with the development team and the marketing team, but it doesn't work with the HR and legal teams, for example, or like a certain tool, or as you said, like the employer branding needs to be stronger in that area. And yeah, it's kind of like a big experimental journey to kind of make sure that each part is like the best for that business and making it succeed. And even once you kind of get to that point and you're like, okay, so we've improved the employer branding here, and now you've hired somebody, the benefits in this place that you give this to this person may not match at all, because they may need more money towards kind of petrol or something, for example, in this country. But in this one, it's kind of everybody gives like a meal subsidization for lunch. I don't know what that looks like, for example, but depending on people's culture, travel, how much, if they're working from home, if there's an office space, it's completely depends on who they are and what they do and what they benefit the most, really.
You're absolutely right. Like looking at those types of things, your total rewards packages and compensation. Yep. That's another area. Um, also, if you think about like kind of, because there's all the legal requirements in all these different locations, that even the way you go about offering candidates may even be different. So, um, in fact, in most cases, it is different. So when you're building out your processes and you're building out your systems, understanding like how much can we globalize, like at what stage, what processes can we have run the same globally, and then at what stage does it then need to switch to something that's more nuanced for that location?
Yeah, absolutely. I guess that's where we can help. I think it really does show that it can be tricky, but experimental is that kind of the key of your role and finding out what works and what doesn't, and kind of being curious about these types of things. Does this work? Does this doesn't? And really getting into that. So thanks for that one. And
I hope you don't mind. Her sleepover fell through.
I have a call with my team in Spain. May I be excused?
She has staff in 4 countries to help with sales.
Cookie sales?
International trade.
How? I've been trying to grow my team in Europe for months.
They handle everything. Now may I be excused?
Yeah.
This is exactly what I need.
as we do kind of reflect, I feel like you've got so much really good experience from the places you've been to. So reflecting on your time at places like Stripe, checkout.com, and now where you are at the moment. Do you keep hiring quality high when you're forced to kind of move at this lightning speed that you're in? I know you're in a very fast-paced environment. How do you keep up that momentum when you are a high growth environment?
Yeah, so I think what I've seen work really well is firstly, like, it does come down to the culture of the business and how the culture views recruitment, or how the company views recruitment. Looking at recruitment as like it's a 10-person function, or recruitment belongs to 5 people or 100 people or whatever it is. I think that recruitment, when you are growing so quickly and you are moving at such a pace and you want to keep that quality high, it does become like an entire company's responsibility, in terms of everybody's got to play their little part when it comes to doing that. So that's the first thing I would start off by saying is that those companies that have that full understanding and appreciation for recruitment and are kind of fully involved and getting involved, often that becomes like a competitive advantage. And that is what that works as you kind of scale. What I would also say is, when you're looking at how can we hire quality candidates at scale really fast, is I do believe it comes down to things like having the right job architecture in place, robust interview processes, having the data available that you can use, and also having those interview flows that are just working really well. And I kind of bring it down to like just four key questions. Like, what does the best candidate look like?
Yeah.
How do we identify that best candidate? How do we hire them incredibly quickly and efficiently? And how can we do that over time, consistently? So those are the key things that I would highlight. So like, if you're a company and you're looking to grow aggressively at a very quick pace, those are sort of the 4 key questions you should be asking yourself. And if you can get systems and processes in place that answer those 4 questions, then I think you're in a very good spot. What I would highlight, though, is that one of the biggest challenges that I've seen is, as companies grow and they scale and they go into different markets, is how do they ensure that they are hiring quality candidates across the board, across those locations. If I'm hiring a senior software engineer in Singapore, London, and San Francisco, how can I ensure that all 3 of those candidates are the same quality? And so that is a very big challenge for companies when they get to that stage.
Yeah. And do you think something like referrals is something that you would use and account for quite a lot, because you've kind of got the high quality person already there and hopefully they know other high quality candidates? Is that something that gets you?
Absolutely. Yeah. Referrals has always been like a great source for top talent. What I learned, this was a couple of years ago, is that also when you are recruiting for your leadership positions within businesses, those positions are very key for obvious reasons, being strategic and leaders and stuff. But quite often, it's those people they'll have like a tree of talent underneath them. So bringing that person in often opens up doors for you as a recruitment team at a business to be able to access a group of talent that you may not have access to before. So when you are interviewing for those leadership positions, that's also something you want to kind of keep in your mind, is like, which, if we hire this person, we're not just hiring this person, but we're potentially hiring a layer of talent that this person has access to.
Yeah. And networking kind of unlock a whole new network that you never really knew could be beneficial to you before. Yeah.
Exactly. There's been companies that I've worked at where the people have joined that company to work with that leader, like specifically. So it can have such a powerful impact when you are growing your business. Who are you hiring into those leadership positions? Because that will naturally bring the best talent to you, which will make it a lot easier.
Yeah. Well, some great tips there. Thank you very much. I think it is, yeah, it's definitely key to have those high quality leaders involved, because that's kind of who's going to be helping shape that roadmap, the growth, the strategy, what that's looking like in a framework in the next kind of 3, 6, 9 months. And yeah, the people that they know hopefully have been part of them in a previous journey to succeed alongside them. So yeah, I think that's really key to also and highlight what that ideal person looks like to you, because in your company, that ideal person will look completely different to another company, but equally they'll have the exact same like desires and skills to be able to succeed. It's crazy how they'll just be one little change, but they'll be very different people, but definitely suited for those different companies. Like if you swap those round, it wouldn't work. But for each individual company, it works.
Yeah, and I think you've raised a really good point there. Like there is a big difference between hiring the best candidate and hiring the right candidate. And I think sometimes companies get that mixed up. They think that, a certain candidate, because they maybe have the fancy names on their CV, and that's the best candidate. But the right candidate is completely different. It's not, they may still have those fancy names on their CV, but you're thinking about culture, you're thinking about environments and things like that. So what might be the best candidate for one company that I worked at might not necessarily be the best candidate for another company I'm working at. So that was a very good point you raised there.
Yeah, exactly. And sometimes as well, this candidate may have 100% of the things on their CV. They've done 100% of the things, but if they enter your company and they don't see room for growth or challenge or a change because they've already done everything on the thing, it may leave room for them to want to leave and find their next new challenge. Whereas sometimes if a candidate does have kind of like a 5% where they maybe haven't done it before, sometimes it's nice to bring somebody that hasn't done that before and be able to see how they do it. It might be completely different to how you've done it before and create a whole new path of ideas. So it's kind of good to explore those people that, yeah, fit so right that they might not fully fit the original job spec, but it's like actually they've done something a little bit different here. They could actually impact the business. So yeah, it's definitely the right candidate is the way to look at this, and it definitely works. If you know what works, you do. So yeah, thank you for that. As we go into the next segment, then I know we spoke a little bit about AI, but I know you're speaking more about like the data side of things. How do you plug AI into your tech stack? Don't have to talk about tools, but is there anything that you've used maybe in the past or something that you know works without kind of completely wrecking that candidate experience or just like throwing in the database in the ATS? Is there anything that you found or a kind of a tool that helps specifically yourself to kind of aid that experience?
I wouldn't necessarily say a tool, but I would say an approach
Yeah.
to implementing AI. Yeah. So I think what I've noticed, implementing AI tools over the last kind of like 18 months or so is that people get very excited about AI, and quite rightly so, because it can do so much. But I think that just because AI can be used doesn't mean necessarily should be used. And I think that's a question that we should always ask ourselves. What I've noticed is that what AI has done is that it's kind of shrunk that technology gap. So people who had experienced problems in the past, non-engineers, non-technical folks, they may not have had the ability to build technical solutions to fix those problems, but now they have the ability to do that. And what I've noticed that leads to is that you have a lot of people who will come up with ideas. They will generate those ideas, execute on those ideas, but maybe when they execute on those ideas, there's not as many users of that product or service that they've built. And so I know this is kind of a long-winded answer, but what I would say is that when you're implementing AI into your systems and processes, and you're thinking about candidate experience and data, I think it's really important that you actually start at the problem that you're trying to fix, and you start at the users, and you work backwards to the technology. And if you do that, then you'll understand the why. You'll understand what's the problem we want to solve, or who is our users. And naturally, I think if TA teams do that, they will naturally, because our users are our candidates, our hiring managers, our recruiters. I think naturally, if they start at that point, the problem and the users and the why, and they work backwards to the technology, if they get to the solution that is we need to implement AI, then I think whatever solution they roll out, they will be considering candidate experience, they'll be considering data before they even reach the technology. So that's what I would say. I would say start at the problem and the users and work backwards to AI, rather than we want to use AI, let's just go and use it.
Exactly, because that's going to probably create more problems than if you just found the problem in the first place. Sometimes implementing a new AI comes along with a lot more than you maybe think, because you've got to then make sure you know the tool in and out. And then sometimes if you have a new AI tool and everybody in the team hasn't been enrolled onto it properly and people don't know how to use it, and especially in a remote environment, you have to make sure everybody's doing the training for certain programs, and people might miss out on that. And then you've got like a team that is half utilizing it, half people weren't sure why they were taking it on in the first place. So then it becomes disjointed. I feel like if you all, as you say, agree on the problem in the first place, then you're all kind of at the core of knowing why you're needing the solution. So you're all kind of wanting to be part of making the problem go away. Whereas, yeah, as you said, it's like, oh, so and so says we need to use this tool. Okay, well, then we get it. And it's like, well, I didn't actually find a problem in that in the first place. And it's too many problems are getting caused by them not using the tool and enrolling and stuff. So yeah, I absolutely get that.
Yeah, 100%. And I think the thing that you'll hear like quite often is like, you've implemented this AI, but what was the adoption? And then you find like, oh, the adoption's really low. Well, it's probably low because of what you just said there. Like, you've just rolled it out and people are like, well, I don't really understand why I'm even using this to begin with.
Yeah, and it becomes a tick box exercise, which is not what tools are meant to be for. Tools are meant to be to help your workload, to be able to make you project manage easier, to make you faster in something, to reduce time, as you said. And then if you're implementing a tool that's actually counteracting all of the above, then it's like, was this tool actually necessary, or was it a tick box to say to the CEO, oh, the recruiters team, they've got an AI tool now that they're using? It definitely gets like that. But yeah, as you said, everybody does want to be part of this motion and does want to make sure that they are implementing the right tools and enrolling at the right times and solving the right problems. So I think it's definitely the question on everybody's mind. So you're really helping to kind of pick through that whys and why you should use it and why it's going to benefit, I think is a really good way of looking at that. So thank you. Then say we have kind of implemented something, but leadership, or if the talent team are feeling a bit overwhelmed, then leadership are going to feel even more overwhelmed by an AI dashboard, for example. Is there any way that you kind of, what does analytics leadership actually use? Like, what does that look like? How are you highlighting certain things to say this is working and this is not, without kind of overwhelming everybody involved in the process?
So I can share what's kind of worked for what hasn't worked for me, also what's worked in this regard. So again, kind of early on in my career when I'm working with C-suite executives, I found that when I had to report back on certain initiatives and stuff, as you said, building a dashboard, presenting them with a dashboard or spreadsheets or whatever it is that I felt that they needed. I thought by doing that, I was actually I was doing them a favor because I was showing them, look at all the work I've done. But in actual fact, it was more for me than it was for them. It was more for me to feel confident and prepared. Like, I've done all this work, I know what I'm talking about, but you sort of you can very much lose the room if you adopt that approach. And so what I've sort of learned over time is, when reporting back, and there will be some C-suite executives who do want to know the detail, and that's fine.
Yeah. Have that in like their back pocket just in case type thing.
Exactly. But I think we sort of touched on this a little bit earlier, but it's what's worked for me is, essentially providing high level overview. Um, what does it mean? What does it mean for them? What does it mean for the business? And what's happening next? And I think if you can keep it like when you are presenting reports or updates to senior leadership, I think if you kind of touch on those points, then I think it will land a lot better. So instead of when you're talking about time to hire, it's like our time to hire is decreased. What does this mean for the business? What does it mean for them? What's going to happen next?
Yeah. Bring it back to those core reasons of why it's helping the business succeed rather than kind of the specifics of what that hire was, how long that specific hire took, what they were hiring for. Yeah. It's nice to have the details to justify the response. But yeah, I think as you say, more tools get implemented, more kind of ways of working, more dashboards need to be able to highlight the things that are gonna help them, which again is another thing that I think people are thinking about at the moment.
Yeah. And going back to what we were saying before, like when you're implementing AI tools, you know, again, if you've started at the why and you've started at the problem and you've worked your way to the technology, then when it comes time to highlight, this is what it was before we've implemented the solution, this is what it is afterwards. You will have more context to be able to highlight that journey and speak about that journey, so that C-suite executives can see, okay, this was before AI solution and then after AI. But I do think one of the biggest lessons that I've learned when it comes to like presenting any kind of data to leadership is it's not a one size fits all, and you do need to kind of make sure that you are tailoring your presentation to the audience and what it is that they want. And from my experience, is keeping it very high level. That tends to land better.
Yeah, great. Thanks for that one. That's a good bit of advice. And I think we all kind of leaving with some kind of pieces of advice and looking ahead to kind of finish off. So if a talent acquisition leader listening to this now can only focus on fixing or optimizing one thing this year, or halfway through the year. So yeah, if they're kind of going into Q3, Q4, and they can kind of fix one thing, is there anything that kind of comes top of mind to you or even something that you are focusing on yourself?
The thing for me, personally, is I think if there's anything that can be optimized or worked on, is your data structures within TA. So yeah, and the reason why I say that is because I do believe, obviously, sitting here today, it could all change, but sitting here today, I think, AI isn't going to go anywhere. I think the tools are going to continue to get better, more powerful. And in order for talent teams to be able to utilize those tools, build their own tools that are going to be more effective and efficient, their data needs to be in a really, really good place. Because otherwise, if you're feeding an AI system poor data, it's just going to deliver, poor outcomes. So if you're looking at something to optimize or something to fix, I would encourage that you look at how are you generating your data through the work that you're doing, and is it clean and is it reliable? That's probably the thing that I would prioritize.
Yeah, no, definitely. I think that's such a good answer because I feel like, especially in fast-paced recruiting spaces, it's like you constantly kind of feel like the data's coming in and you're churning it, but you're not kind of seeing, like, actually looking fully at that. And it's like, is it right? Is it messy? What is actually happening? It's hard sometimes to take that step back and look at the data because you probably do have 1 million other things that you have to do. But I truly get that, as you said, like if the data is right, it's going to make every single other part of the process a lot more clean and efficient to be able to make what you're doing know if it's working or not. So yeah, I absolutely get that. It's quite a hard moment to just get back to, but I guess it's going to be one of the most efficient if you want to optimize your process.
Yeah, absolutely. And for some teams that can come with a culture shift. So like data isn't necessarily like the numbers and figures you generate through ATS, but it's even like how you document processes, how you document policies, where you store those policies, and all of that stuff. So if you're a team that maybe never documented things in the past, then shifting across to, okay, we want to start documenting things and writing things down and storing it somewhere so that an AI system can come in and access that and start to be able to give that out to employees, then that's also kind of a challenge there where you're shifting a whole culture over to new ways of working. So yeah, that's why I would say like prioritize that now, because as these tools, AI tools, become better, I think there's no hindrance from implementing them.
I think that's especially in recruitment as well. You're constantly reevaluating what's working and what's not working, especially with like surveys going out to employees as well, what's working for them, what's not. And I think that kind of constant reevaluation is exactly what's needed to make sure that the processes are kind of the most efficient and successful that they can be. So yeah, I think that's a really good tip to people to go away with. And then finally, then for leaders who feel maybe just completely behind on AI and automated tools, what is the very first step you think that they should take tomorrow?
I think the first thing is to firstly recognize that, as we said in the start of the call, AI is changing so much. There's new tools coming out, new models. So I think the first thing for TA leaders to do is be kind to themselves, I think, first and foremost, because it is changing a lot. And it's okay if you're feeling like you're a bit behind, because I think every TA leader at some point is going to feel that way because of how quickly things are changing. But so that's the first thing I would say, is just sort of be kind to yourself and don't put too much pressure on yourself in that regard. But what I would say is if you've not interacted with these tools at all, there's a lot of great free tools that you can use, like Gemini and ChatGPT. I certainly would encourage that you start using these tools in your personal life. Just get a sense of what these tools can do and what they can't do. Um, and whilst you're using them in your personal life, try and think, how can I use these free tools in my professional life that's going to help me improve my day-to-day work? And I think from there, once you start to interact with these tools, you get a sense of what they can do. And if you're lucky enough to work in a business where they are also giving you kind of enterprise level tools that you can use, then you can start to think, okay, let's see what tool can I build for myself. So going back to like the problem in the user, like how can I build a tool for myself as I'm the user? Because then that will allow you to really start working with these tools, getting a sense of what they can do. And once you build a tool for yourself, then I would then say, go and look at like your talent acquisition team, and then how can you build a tool for your whole TA team? Um, that's kind of been my journey, to be really honest. That's how I've sort of taken those steps. So it's worked for me. I think other people might find just diving straight in and building tools, and everyone's different. But for me, that's kind of the steps that I took to get where I am.
I think that stepping stone process is definitely part of it. And then once you know it's working in your personal life, you can think maybe kind of writing down what your day-to-day life looks like in a week and being like, okay, in 4 times this week, I've repeated the same task manually. Is there a way that I can now automate this one task? And kind of looking at it as like a kind of process of your 5 working week. Okay, I've typed this same email out 4 times now. Is there a way that this can kind of be automated when this is generated? So yeah, I think that's a really good way to look at it and see. And then you're kind of, as you said, identifying it might not be a problem, but it might just be something that you are manually doing on repeat that doesn't kind of need to be manually done anymore. Again, will free up more time to do more things like making sure your data's right and everything like that. So it's all kind of beneficial for yourself as you go along and utilize these tools, and hopefully, yeah.
Yeah, I was just going to quickly add, there's also a lot of resources and YouTube videos out there. So like get stuck into those, get inspired by what other people are building and try and apply that to your own professional or personal life. But yeah, no, hopefully that's people find that useful.
Yeah, no, that was amazing. I think it was really nice kind of seeing your shift of what you've seen change, what that looks like when you are kind of speaking to the C-suite leaders, and what that looks like then when you are hiring across borders, how to kind of keep that fast-paced momentum in a fast-paced environment, what that looks like when you're enrolling tools, and kind of how to display that to then when you have enrolled it, what that looks like to the leadership, and then kind of these key things on data, and making sure that you are being very kind to yourself. I think that's a very nice takeaway at the end, because be kind. Everybody is trying to help everybody out, and nobody is making sure nobody is left behind. So yeah, I think that's a really nice summary of what we've talked through today. And yeah, I can't believe it's nearly been 50 minutes. That's the fastest time ever.
Yeah, that was great. Honestly, I loved
Yeah,
it.
amazing. Thanks so much for joining us on the Freedom of Work podcast. And thanks to the listeners or the watchers out there. You can join us again. So yeah, this is the 32nd episode of the Freedom of Work podcast. Thanks, Gareth.
Thank you.
Bye.
Cheers. Bye-bye. Bye.